Hello and welcome back to makers.dev episode number 22. Chris, we weren't here last week. What happened?
That's right. I went to a cabin in the woods for a week, and that was very nice. It was with the family, and we just went and didn't do very much. We saw a bunch of frogs and fish, and had campfires. Yeah, it was good.
That sounds idyllic. That sounds like the optimal way to spend time. The reason we're doing all this. Well, no, that's not true because I really enjoy the work. But that's an important part of life is like slowing down and getting out of your regular groove and looking at bullfrogs and fish. That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
These last 2 weeks, I had two life events happen that were really fun. My younger of my two younger sisters got married, and the elder of my two younger sisters had a gender reveal party. So there's lots of family stuff happening. It was so much fun. Lots of family time and like played a bunch of games and there was dancing at the wedding, and the gender reveal party was in Corpus Christi on the beach, and that was a whole bunch of fun. And just like a whole bunch of time spent doing things I don't usually do and reconnecting with like, oh yeah, there's I can do a lot of things and a lot of work and have fun with things that have nothing to do with computers. I enjoyed it a lot, spending time with families. Consistently very fulfilling and helps me get perspective on my life.
Yep. Yeah, same here. It does not push the work forward, but it pushes life forward. So yeah, that's always good.
I think it does push the work forward. If you get too caught up in it depends. Like if it's very clear that you're going in the right direction and that your assumptions about the world are correct, then like, yeah, the most effective thing you can be doing is just sitting down and working as hard and as fast as you can. But the world changes so fast, and my internal world is so complicated, and there are at any given point a million different directions I can go in, that like taking time out to do something else and to question those, to not explicitly, but to give myself the bandwidth and the space to question the things that I'm doing and just kind of let ideas percolate and with no pressure kind of think about, okay, well, what does make the most sense to spend time on, and which of these million directions does make sense to push forward on. I think that is pushing the work forward because it's helping me define what the most important direction is to go forward. So I very consistently, when I take time to just do something completely different, I walk away from it with a new clarity on the direction I'd like to be moving in. And this last break was no exception. I may surprise you and listeners by saying I am rejuvenated in working on File Inbox again. And I have a whole bunch of things I'd like your hot take on. And I also have a firm justification for why I'm excited about it again. So I'm excited to go into that. But first, what was your last 2 weeks like? What were you thinking about? Did you have any insights of directions that you'd like to move in, or did you think of a new angle on your AI problem of how you can win this contest?
Yeah. So first, yeah, you're totally right. That taking time off really can focus you. It's the same reason like I take walks in the middle of the day because, well, one, it's healthy, and two, it is really good to just take a step back and sort of think about your problem while not doing the problem for a while. And walks almost always help, that in some way. So yeah, last week, first I'll say, you know me so well. At the end of the episode, I said I wanted to do some API work and Meeting Place, and you said I won't, and I didn't. So even though I told everyone I was going to, I didn't. Instead, I worked on the AI, the Kaggle problem. I'll give myself some slack because I was off, as well. Preparing for the vacation, going on vacation, and getting back from it. But yeah, so I did AI the whole week before the vacation. And update on that. So there's 900 people in the competition.
Okay.
I was in like 200th place or so. Okay. I'm now in 7th place.
Holy cow.
So
that's
way
great.
up there.
All right.
If I finish in the top 10, you get what's like called a gold, and then you get extra Kaggle points or whatever.
All
so
right.
I really want to finish in the top 10 now. But yeah, so 7th place feels good. Let's see what else. Okay, so because I didn't do Meeting Place though, I signed up for this thing that Alex Hillman puts on. This is the same Alex Hillman that does 30 by 500 with Amy. So Amy and Alex. He is starting, or I guess this is the second iteration of something called Work in Progress. It's a paid community, basically. And so I'm going to pay some money every month to be part of this Work in Progress cohort where you basically hold each other accountable. That's basically the whole thing. And there are some extra things like, they give advice. They have sessions like for, when you have business problems, you can come to the session with a problem and sort of talk about it and stuff. But it's mostly just to, I am paying money to have someone say, did you do this thing yet? That's basically what that is. So yeah, that's going to be this whole summer basically. And I plan to spend about half my time pushing forward the AI stuff and about half the time doing this Work in Progress cohort with the SaaS stuff. So yeah, that's my update.
Chris, I didn't know the thing you needed was to pay someone money. I should have made this clearer before. You can be paying me money to be on this podcast if that's what you need. I'd like to talk about the AI first. 7 is fantastic out of that many hundreds of people. What was the breakthrough? What was it, a series of things, or did you combine a whole bunch of smaller things?
Yeah, it was kind of a series of things. I knew that I was heading in a good direction, and I just had to get there. And so there's a lot of pre-processing. My approach is kind of an iterative one, and so it gets better at every step. And so at every step, I'm able to produce better data that I feed into my model that then goes back into my model.
Okay.
And so because of that, also, I'm not done, basically. Like, I know the next 10 steps to do, and there's still a month left of the contest. I should be able to improve my score. The problem is everyone else is doing it at the same time. So, basically, like, if I did nothing else, I'd probably finish in the bottom, or, out of 20th place or so, I think. So I have to keep going to maintain my spot. But yeah, it's just a lot of little things, basically. Nothing too crazy.
We got to get you those Kaggle points.
That's right.
Those sweet monkey points. I'm curious about Work in Progress. I think I've seen a tweet from Alex on that, but I didn't dig into it to see what it was. What's the format of that? Is it like a weekly check-in, or is it posts, or is it video calls? How does that work?
So I think there's multiple things, and there's multiple things based on how much you pay. Okay. There's all the way from, like, you're just part of the Discord, basically, all the way up to, like, personalized one-on-one sessions with Alex, which are very expensive. And so I didn't do that. I did like the middle one, basically. And so I think and I signed up, like, I read it once basically, and I was like, oh yeah, I need this. It is a check-in with a group of up to like 12 people maybe, and then also smaller group sessions with like 3 different people. And then there's like, well, I can just pull it up and show you. It's joinwip.com, I think.
We will link this in the show notes too.
Yep. And it's already, I think it's closed for this round. Like, it's already, like, the applications or whatever are closed for this round. But yeah, so you get a roundtable, private Discord, a cohort of people that are doing it along with you. And then you have these spotlight sessions where you can basically bring things to the group and they can try to help you. So
neat. What is the project that you're bringing to this group? What's the thing that you want to be held accountable on?
Yeah, so I think it is going to be Meeting Place. Meeting Place is still the one, when I think about all the things that I'm doing, that actually has traction and actually has people paying for it. And if I hit it right, then that could be the full-time SaaS. And so I'm going to be working on, like, so Acorn Chat, I still want to finish up some stuff with that. I still have a couple other things, but Meeting Place is what I'm going to focus on during the Work in Progress sessions.
Okay. It's funny, we both had like a coming home these last 2 weeks of like, okay, let's... I'm consistently amazed. Like, we don't talk very much between podcasts, and then we'll come together once a week and be like, oh my gosh, we like had the same sort of thing, and we both had these wacky divergent projects, and then both coming back to the thing. Like, these are the projects we started this podcast on. This is what it lists that we're doing on makers.dev. Yeah. And we're going back to it. Neat. So I guess preempting you for that, then, what is the work that makes the most sense for you to be doing on Meeting Place? I agree that this is the thing that you have that has the most traction. Is what projects are in your mind that make sense to work on next?
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of marketing stuff and marketing adjacent things. And so I still think, like, getting docs, getting, making it obvious that Meeting Place is a place where you can host a meetup group, and all the things that people ask me about it before they sign up, making that obvious front and center. So it's a lot of stuff I know how to do. It's kind of like the AI stuff, right? I kind of know all the steps. I got to do all the steps, and so a lot of that. I want to do there's some technical work too, but it's mostly marketing and that kind of stuff.
Cool. That makes sense. Does that feel clear to you? You glazed a little bit over marketing. That's just perpetually. That's been a thing on my to-do list. And if it's as broad as marketing, it doesn't get done. And you brought up some examples of specifics of like, okay, you could address specific questions people have when they're signing up and put that on the homepage. Is the cognitive work done there? Like you actually do know the next step you would need to do. For that task, I imagine like, I don't know, you have a list of the questions people ask you, and you just write a blurb for each of those on the homepage. Is that what you're thinking? Yeah. So for that one, yeah, I kind of bucket it in a few different categories. So that one, yes, that's basically what it is. I also want to write content about things like, how to run a great remote group, how to come back. So I think something big is going to be how to come back from COVID, how to revitalize your group after you start being in person again. And I don't know exactly when that'll hit, like maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, but at some point, a lot of groups who have been remote for a year are going to come back and realize that a lot of people aren't engaging again. So I think there's a lot of content around how do you get an in-person group going again. Yep.
And then generally docs. So and especially bottom of the funnel docs. So this is like like how to create a group even with videos and a walkthrough, and then how to basically whatever people are going to search for when they're starting a group, make a doc page for that, and have exactly how to do it. And cool. Then so that was half of it. The second half is active reach out. So I could do a lot more to actively reach out to organizers of. I had this whole plan when I started Meeting Place about like how to get in front of organizers, and then organizers tend to know other organizers, and so it's generally easy to get at least one warm lead when you talk to organizers. So if I just do that a bunch, then I can just talk to a bunch of organizers, and so yeah, I need to execute on that plan, which I created a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Who is in that pool of organizers? Are you reaching out to people on Meetup who aren't happy with Meetup, or are you reaching out to people who don't even have an online presence? Who is that audience?
There's kind of three categories of people. One is people I already know, and so that's like the Indianapolis Meetup area community. Mm-hmm. And I already have several Indianapolis tech meetups on there, and I know more people in the Indianapolis tech meetup space. So that's kind of like people I already know. Second is like people who complain about Meetup on Twitter, and that is how I've gotten some of my best customers so far. Is if they complain about Meetup on Twitter, and I chime in at the right time, then I can engage them. So I probably need like Twitter alerts for that kind of thing. And then third is people who run Meetup groups who may or may not be looking for a somewhere to go. So, and that's how like warm leads is the best way I found to get in front of those people.
Cool. Okay, so I heard three different categories of people: local people who you know in Indianapolis, people on Twitter who are complaining about something on Meetup, and then there may be people who already run Meetups, probably on Meetup, who are looking for somewhere to go. I'm thinking like, a forum post that's asking how do you do X on meetup.com, and at the end of the thread they're like, you can't, this isn't supported on Meetup. That'd be a great place to chime in and be like, oh, actually, I have my own thing and it does that.
Right.
Does that sound right?
Yep.
Cool. This sounds very actionable. It sounds like things you do like today, like setting up a Twitter alert. What does that alert look like? Just anyone who mentions Meetup and then you get an email?
That would be really noisy. I could do that. So a lot of people use, is it called TweetDeck? So a lot of people use that with keywords, which maybe I could do. So it doesn't ping you every time because, but when you're there, you see a column of Meetup related tweets.
Yep. That makes sense. Okay. And then like once a day you check that and reply to ones that look interesting.
Yeah.
I like that as a tactic. I am going to blatantly steal that from you. TweetDeck notification. And I think I could do that with like share file. Cool. I'll dig into that later. And then local people. Is there a list of people that come to mind that you want to reach out to? Is that like an email that you send? Is that a phone call?
Yeah, so I'll start with emails to all the existing organizers just to, like, I sort of did this once before. I can basically talk to them whenever I want, like they're my friends. And so I talk to them. And then after I know that they're solid, then I can start reaching out to other people who I know who run groups who have expressed an interest in coming over but haven't. A lot of that was COVID too. So at least 2 or 3 groups were like, I want to switch. And then COVID hit and they're just like, eh. So maybe I could see, now that, things are winding down. Well, I don't know. COVID's still here to stay for a while. And there's going to be hybrid groups. Even when people go back in person, there's going to be hybrid groups for a long time. So if I can help them with their game plan, if I can help any organizer with their game plan for how to be hybrid, how to start back in person, that kind of thing, I can see that as being very valuable.
I love that, because that to me would feed directly into the content that you could make. So every conversation you have with them, just record it, have a notepad, and for whatever topic that comes up of, any time they express a frustration or a question that they have of, but I don't know, do I need to provide masks at the meetup? Okay, well, great. That's a question they just asked. That's a thing that they don't know the answer to, that provably now people in your audience are asking this question. Okay, that becomes a piece of content. Make an article about it, and I think we're both very well versed in video. I think the format you have for doing like the Twitter style little short summary videos of things is a perfect format to just plop that at the top of the article, and then you can also tweet about it. And the thing you're talking about is like, should you provide masks? And you just answer that question. The 30 by 500 way to do this, they call it an E-bomb. It's this idea of like content marketing. You just make it nice and crispy of like, this is the exact question they're asking, and I'm directly answering it, and we're done. And,
right.
Maybe there's an email sign up at the bottom of like, would you like my guide on the 10 steps you need to rehydrate your group after COVID to make it an in-person group? Something that like someone reading that article would also have those questions. And now you have emails, and now you can put people on that email list through a sequence, and that funnel eventually leads to that they've signed up for meetup.com. I think that's the play. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's great. I should do that. I'll add that to my list of things. Yeah.
But will you? The way to make sure you do it is like, okay, the very next actionable step that I heard here was, there's local people you have who you can reach out to at any time who are your friends, who it sounds like might be starting to put their meetups back in action again, starting as hybrid groups. So the way to start that would be like reach out to them and just ask for a catch-up call. Is that the next step?
Yeah, I think so. And cool. It's probably, for the groups I know, it's probably at least a few months out. But it's something that people are generally starting to think about, like, when can we go back in person? Yeah, what exactly do we have to do? So yeah, it's probably, if I had to guess, it would be after the summer. Like, people generally take light summers anyway. But my guess is in fall, we'll start seeing more hybrid groups.
Cool. But I don't want you to guess. I want you to give me customer quotes. I want you to tell me what your friends are thinking.
Good point.
What would it take to get one of those calls scheduled for this week?
A Slack message to one
Slack message.
Yeah. Or an email. Yeah.
Cool. Can we do that today? Can I send out the Slack message or email?
Sure.
Today?
I will do that for you, Christian.
Great. I'm your boss again.
Yep.
telling you what to do. Yeah. I'm going to need this exact same thing for what I'm about to talk about with File Inbox. Cool. And then Twitter alerts also sounds like a thing that you could do today. Just add like a column in TweetDeck for Meetup, I guess.
I don't use TweetDeck. It's TweetDeck.twitter, or what is it? Yeah, tweetdeck.twitter.com.
Yeah.
I don't use that normally, but everyone says it's really good. So I think I have to change my. I even have it already set up. I'm just looking at it now. I already have some columns set up. And so I just have to use TweetDeck instead of the main Twitter homepage. And I think already good on that one.
How might we enable future Chris to check TweetDeck instead of the Twitter homepage? Could you redirect?
I was about to say, I go to Twitter by typing TW enter. And so if I can make Chrome go to TweetDeck instead of Twitter, then I'll just use TweetDeck. So
Cool. Okay. Do you use the Chrome homepage? Do you have anything on there right now?
no, I use it. It's just blank.
Could we set up TweetDeck as your new tab page? So it just
Yes, but I might waste more time if every new tab shows.
that's fair.
Shows Twitter.
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, you have. Could you not use the Twitter homepage at all? Like, what if you set up a redirect so that anytime you tried to go to twitter.com, it redirects you to TweetDeck?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I think I could do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. Neat. That sounds like a thing you could do today. And then the third one you said was a little fuzzier. People who run meetups and maybe looking for somewhere to go.
Yeah.
You'd be encountering those people on TweetDeck, but I'm thinking more of like forum posts or something. What's the habit that we could install that would get you more exposed to those people?
So that is generally, at least my idea, is to every time I talk to someone who runs a group, ask who else they know who runs groups, and then talk to those people.
Okay.
So that's warm referrals. That was my idea for that. I think forum posts or like Quora or something is a great idea too. Something I didn't really consider. So maybe I should probably do some research also. So let's add to my list, just look to see where and how many questions are being asked about things Meetup can't do. One of the biggest ones is Meetup does not let you download your list of member emails unless you pay them a whole bunch of money. And so you just can't do it. And people are upset about that, and that's one of the reasons they switched to Meeting Place. And so if I could somehow get a whole bunch of forum posts that all ask that question and then put an answer, that is, you could do it if you host your group on Meeting Place. Then that would probably be time well spent.
Perfect. That sounds good. I have a tool that I made on that third point based off of taking 30 by 500 that it was... I want to explain why I'm laughing. There's an exercise that we needed to do as part of 30 by 500 that was to find watering holes, to find places like forums and like discussion boards and like Quora answers of people in our audience asking questions. And in the exercise, they explicitly said, do not use a tool to automate this. Like, here's the process. You're going to type out each of these things. Don't use a tool because that's going against it. And I asked them why, and they were like, well, Google can sometimes autocomplete things that you weren't thinking about. But you know me. I just can't. I just can't. And so I made a little tool that takes all of their keywords from their course. And it's things like, it's keywords like forum and like discussion board and like chat board. It's like 30 of those terms. And so you take industry terms. So, in one of the examples I went through in the class was like, if you're targeting React developers, what are keywords that they would use? Well, they would use like React, and they might use JavaScript, and they might use front-end framework. And so what my tool does is just take your brainstorm of your industry terms and multiplies them with the set of all of the terms from 30 by 500 so that you get a list of like all of the possible Google searches you could get to find these watering holes. So you get like React forum, React newsletter, React YouTube channel, and then the next one, JavaScript forum, JavaScript community, JavaScript YouTube channel. So that's a tool that I will link in the show notes, or that you'll link. You're doing the show notes now. I'll just send you the link.
I'm doing the show notes. Yeah. Which I'm using clips.marketing, which makes it very easy to do timestamps and notes. So.
Clips.marketing, Chris, tell me more.
Yeah, it's a tool made by someone who may be on this podcast, and it's really great. So, yeah.
Well, whoever made that sounds like a cool guy, or woman. Who's to say? Cool. So, yes. Okay. So, I would suggest as a potential thing forward on that third point of looking to see where and how many questions are being asked about things Meetup can't do, to use this or a tool like this of just like go through Google and try to look for watering holes of questions people have. This is a harder thing, thinking like productively. That's something that I could see just falling off my to-do list if I don't have a time-bounded, like, Google this for an hour. And the at the end of the hour, what you'll have is just a list of URLs of forums of where people are talking about this. And then, okay, maybe in the second hour, you have a list of at least 10 questions that people ask or 10 problems that people have with Meetup. And then I would have difficulty thinking about how could you install this in the long term of like, is this a thing that you do for an hour every Monday? You go through your list of the, you've refined, now you have your list of the top 5 places where people complain about this, and you know to check Quora, and you know to check this forum, and you know to check Twitter on the TweetDeck. Is this a habit that for an hour once a week you just loop through all of those, and when you see a juicy complaint that either you can write an article about or you can post directly in that forum and be like, hey, actually I made a thing that fixes this, that within that hour you do it? What are your thoughts there? How do you see being able to do that on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. In Sales Safari, I think they recommend, like, the first time you do it, if I remember the blog post right, it's like 40 to 60 hours of doing it is their recommendation, which is like a week and a half of full-time.
Is that
work.
right? That's so much.
If I remember right, maybe it's not, but ongoing is interesting. This would be nice. This would be where like a TweetDeck type style alert if someone posts, a thing would be nice. I bet that exists. I bet there's like a get an email whenever someone asks a Quora question about whatever topic.
I smell a trap because I think the trap
if
is
not,
you're going to find out it doesn't exist.
Somebody
or
should build
it exists, but not exactly how you want it. And then you're like, I made this Twitter tool instead.
Right.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, I think your spend an hour every Monday or something is a good way to do it. Just force yourself, to a time box, and I think that's a pretty solid way.
What Amir, are you part of 30 by 500?
No, I just read all their blog posts and stuff. Yeah.
It's the same information.
Yeah.
I think I want to go through that again. I've gone through it like 1.5 times, and every time I get something new out of it, and it's just nice to like be slowly marching forward. And every time I do it, I'm coming at it with like this new life experience, this new understanding of how business works, and things that used to be really challenging and difficult to me. I'm just like, oh my God, how did I think this was difficult? Like, of course this is how it works. Of course you'd go and Google communities for it and make content. Oh my gosh, so like the tool in my tool set now compared to the last time I went through it is like, it's so much easier for me to make content now than it was before. I've made dozens of podcast episodes, hundreds if you include like the the experiment podcast I did where I was doing one every day. And like video tutorials are just something that's trivially easy for me now. And so I think something I was scared of before in going through this class is, well, I don't know how to make content, and I feel very self-conscious about publishing things, and I need it to be perfect, and then I'm just like delaying publishing things. And now I'm just like, who cares? just get it out there. And I have a button on my desk to start recording a webcast, and then I start recording, and then I hit another button, and it processes and uploads to YouTube after I type in a title. And that's not a thing that I had before. So I think going through that again, I would be able to churn out much more content, and I think I'm much more well positioned to be able to actually be doing their e-bombs and be doing the work of finding the audience. Oh, another thing I used to be really self-conscious of is like not knowing who the audience was for File Inbox, and sort of having this fragmented audience of like, well, it's sort of financial people, and it's sort of accountants, and it's sort of sign printers, and I don't know which one of those to choose. And the class is like, you can only pick one, and you got to focus on one. And that, I was just agonizing over that of like, well, how do I pick one? And now I got to figure out like, what's the basis to pick one? And now I'm like, there's like 3 or 4 of them, and that covers most of it. I'll just do all 4. Like, there's a lot of overlap between them, but it's fine. I would much rather be a little bit fragmented in that dimension than just like not do it. Or I could also just pick one and do it badly. And like, if I pick the wrong one, that's fine. There are people using it who are in this audience, and so in the worst case, I won't be the most possibly effective that I could be. And I think that's fine. So I have much less anxiety around that. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm gonna restart that course this week.
Yeah, I think the key is just keep moving forward. So yeah, you can get paralyzed by who do I pick, or what do I write, or how do I put content out there, but do the thing, and you'll come to some optima pretty quickly. So.
Thank you, boss. That's the correct thing to do. I want to hammer this home. This last point. I want to hear like the measurable thing that you're going to do this week to look and see where and how many questions are being asked about things Meetup can't do. Do you want to like give me a really easy to achieve goal of like you're going to spend an hour just making a list of the forum posts, or you're going to spend an hour doing that and an hour looking for questions? What feels like a meaningful, tasty chunk of work to you that you can accomplish this week?
Yeah, I think I should spend an hour looking for all the different places where people talk about Meetup, and generally what they start pulling out quotes about what they find troublesome. So yeah, spend an hour. Yep.
All right. I have 3 things for you then. As your boss for this week, here are your assignments. The first is you're going to send at least one email or Slack message setting up a call with one of the local friends that you have on meetups, just to touch base and get a read of where they are. And you don't have to have the conversation. You just have to send the Slack email, the Slack message, or the email. That's thing number 1. Thing number 2, you're going to set up a Twitter alert. But I think you said you already had that on TweetDeck. That the terms are already
I'm
there.
going to try to redirect Twitter to TweetDeck on Chrome.
Perfect. Yep. So the second thing is just redirect Twitter to TweetDeck, so that when you type in Twitter, it's going to go to TweetDeck, and then it'll pop up with like, oh my gosh, this person's asking a question about, and you don't have to answer any of the messages. You just have to set up the redirect. And then the third thing is you're going to spend an hour looking to see looking for watering holes well, I guess that's it. You're gonna spend an hour looking for watering holes, and through that process, you're gonna start exposing yourself to questions. But like, if you just set a timer on your desk for 60 minutes, and you stare at Google for an hour, like you would accomplish this task. But at the end of it, it would be nice to have at least one watering hole of like, here's a form where people are asking questions about Meetup. Does that sound manageable? Does that sound
sounds great? Thanks, boss.
Does it sound too easy? Do you want to up the difficulty?
So in some ways yes, but also no, because I want to make my place go from 7th to 6th to 5th on Kaggle. So most of my time I think will be spent doing that. I have the next 10 things I want to do in my model I have ready to go, and so I want to do that. Which I don't want to talk about this too long, but so we talked about Google Colab and some of the reasons why you might build versus just using that. The biggest reason is so Colab you can run for up to 12 hours, but they have this undocumented sort of feature where after about 30 minutes, they're like, if you haven't interacted with the page, they say, oh, you must not be there. Let's disconnect your session.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I tried to run something for like an hour, and I went for a walk, and I came back, and it was like disconnected. And there are all these sort of hacks. You can use JavaScript to like make it think you're there. Such a pain. But to fix that problem, I'd have to spend, so I could pay the spot prices for Amazon or Paperspace or something. Or I could spend about $4,000 to get a new computer to do it myself. Which
sounds like way more fun.
It is. I have not done that yet, but might be coming.
All right, cool. I feel like with certainty I could say within the next 2 episodes you're gonna be like, so I spent $8,000 on this computer, and all the parts are strewed on my desk, and this part is broken, and so I remade it myself.
If I could get an RTX 3090 at retail price right now, I would buy it today. But they're going at 2 or 3 times retail right now because everyone's using them for Ethereum mining. So
maybe
that's why I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Which, from our last episode, I don't think I understand the economics of. Like, I could see how this could make money if you had hundreds of these, but
so the 3080 with the 3080, even factoring, and I want the 3090, but with the 3080, you can make some like between $10 and $20 a day, even factoring electricity.
Okay.
So I think
are their graphics cards that much better than mine? Like, I got mine last year and I thought it was
so the
mid-tier.
I think yours is AMD, right?
Yeah.
So NVIDIA has this interface called CUDA, and it basically makes programming way easier for the NVIDIA GPUs, so much so that deep learning, for example, doesn't even work on AMD cards. Like it's no different than a CPU. And so I suspect that's exactly what's happening with like all the popular coin clients probably only really work on NVIDIA cards. That's my guess.
Gotcha.
I don't know that for sure, but that's my guess.
I suppose I chose my architecture suboptimally for mining crypto.
Still works for gaming, so yeah.
It still works for gaming, yes. Except mine doesn't. It's been shutting off, and I can't figure out why. It's fine.
Thermal throttling, probably.
Yeah, I think so. It's running Linux also, and I think the drivers might not be. It's fine. Neat.
Anyway, what did you get up to these last 2 weeks?
What did I get up to these last 2 weeks? So, I had a conversation with, I think our mutual friend. Do you know Shai Schechter of Right Message? He's the co-founder with Brennan Dunn.
Yeah, so I know of it, but I don't know him personally.
Okay, he's become one of my good friends. We have weekly chats about like philosophy and life and relationships, and recently we've been talking more about investing. And crypto has been going crazy, and I have some investments in crypto that like because that has gone up, it's put me in this new position where like I have some money to figure out where I want to put it. And so we've been talking about what makes the most sense to put it there. And that was not a sentence. Where does it make the most sense to reallocate this money? Thinking about all the different places I could put it. And so I framed this problem for him of like, how do I decide if I have whatever $1,000 to spend? How do I decide where the most effective place to spend that money is? And there's some baseline of that of like, you want to be diversified. You don't want all your eggs in one basket because some things are higher risk, higher reward. So you want to make sure that you're stable because like the stability is the most important thing. But let's say like, you've achieved reasonable stability. You're pretty sure that you're going to have enough money for the foreseeable future. And now you just have money to play with, to bet with. And so I was thinking like, what is $1,000 worth to me in the stock market? Via the 4% rule, it's kind of worth $40 a year. So that's like the baseline of what I would want to get out of $1,000. And I could ask that question in a different way of like, how much would I pay? How much would I put in the stock market to be able to get $1,000 of annual income? And that would be 1,000 divided by 0.04, which is 25,000. But that's also accounting for inflation. So if we say like 8% of the stock market, that would be like $12,500. So I would pay $12,500 to the stock market to be able to get $1,000 a year in income. And I've been playing this game recently called Cash Flow by Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, who is so into real estate. He loves real estate and is talking about like, oh my gosh, you can buy a house on a mortgage, and especially if it's your first mortgage, that's just great. And then you can rent out the house, and you don't even have to do anything with it. You can just hire a rental company. And for $50,000 as a down payment, you can now own this whatever $300,000 house that you can then be making like whatever $800 a month in passive income. We'll say $1,000 a month in passive income. So in that respect, you're spending $50,000 to get $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year in the passive income. So I was thinking like in the conversation with Shai, like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not doing anything in real estate, and so I should do that. And there's some clever things I could do here of like glamping is a thing, and for much less than $50,000, you could buy like an RV or a tiny house or like a Airstream or like a yurt and put that on some land. And now for this structure that costs you like $20,000, you can be making $1,000 a month. And so in trying to equate all those, the question I had was like, how can we put all these things in the same terms so that it's clear to me where it makes the most sense to be putting more money? And then Shai was like, Christian, don't you run a business like that's making a lot of money that you have all these advantages in of like, how software works and you know how all this works? How much money is your business making right now? And I was like, about $7,000 a month. And he was like, what would it take to grow that by like 5% per month? And I was like, well, not very much, because that's, 700 divided by 2. That's like $350 more per month of passive income. I'm like, that's like 2 or 3 more customers depending on what price they're on. And if I had a month to do that, my gosh, that seems incredibly easy. And then I was thinking, okay, how much is it worth to me to be making $1,000 more per month in the business? Like how much would I spend on File Inbox in order to raise MRR by $1,000? And this is where I felt so dumb that like I just hadn't thought through this math, I guess. But like in thinking about how much money I would spend to raise MRR by $1,000, well, I think it would be a very safe bet to spend like what I would make in the next year to make that $1,000 back, which is $12,000. And if I'm thinking about like, okay, I can raise MRR, how might I raise MRR by $1,000 a month for $12,000? Is there any way that I could spend $12,000 to raise MRR by $1,000? And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, there's thousands of things I could do. I could buy ads, and I could hire a developer to make WordPress plugins, and I could like do all these things. And I don't know if I just didn't allow myself to think of it this way, but I feel like I've been handicapping myself with the way that I've been thinking about this business as like I don't think I've been thinking of it as an investment. I think I've been thinking of it as like, I don't know, this thing that I did that's magical that I can't do anything to grow. But in thinking about that, even like the money that I have invested in the stock market, I'm effectively buying other people's businesses. And so how many layers of indirection are there between me and the person actually making the money? This is an opportunity I have where I own the business directly. So it's not just the $12,000. It's like, okay, well, churn is only 5-ish%. I'm probably, if I raise MRR by $1,000, that's probably going to go into year 2 and year 3 and a little bit into like year 5. So it's worth much more than $12,000. And also, I own the business. It's not just that I'm getting the income from the business. It's like for every $1,000 that increases, like we were talking about, MRR valuations are, like 5 times, or
5 times
5x
ARR.
Yeah. ARR. So if I make $1,000 more, let's do a conservative estimate. If I raise MRR by $1,000 a month, that's now $12,000 per year times a 5x valuation is $60,000. So like, what have I been doing? Like, it sure sounds like I could spend something like $80,000 to raise MRR by $1,000, and that would be way on the side of spending a lot of money. And it may very well be that like I can't spend that money to raise MRR, and I think there's a lot of risk in that I'm not talking about. But my gosh, it sure sounds like the most straightforward trade in the world to be doing a smaller amount than that. That like if I can spend, I don't know, $5,000 to raise MRR by $1,000, like I think I'd do that as many times as I possibly can, as long as I can afford it. That is the best place for me to be spending money, to be making more money. So that's where I am now. And so I have a list of things that I would like to bounce off of you with this lens of like looking at this as an investment. So being much more liberal in spending money. If there's for any of these things, I don't need to be the person doing it. I can hire someone else to do it if I don't want to do it, or if hiring someone else would get it done faster. I got some things I'd like your hot takes on.
All right.
Looking at this as an investment.
Yeah. So before that, there's 2 resources that you could check out. Because, you're talking about cash flow the whole time. And all I was thinking was, how much does this raise your like we were talking about with the sale of a business? Like, how much does it raise your value of your business? There's 2 microconf talks. One is by Patty O'Levin, Patrick McKinsey, about when he sold his business. More than half of his returns, it was something like 2/3 of his returns, came at the sale of the business. Wow. Yeah, it's like the whole value of his business, like half the value is right at the end.
Wow.
And then the other one is by Jordan Gal, who talked about how he made free content and then drove ads to the free content, and he spent something like $6,000 or something like on ads, and raised the value of the corporation, the value of the business, by like $600,000 or something like that because of the math. The math is just...
I just read that article. Right.
The math is just nuts. And so, I'm glad you came to that realization. Yeah. I did the same math when I first started to get some money from my first job. I was like, I could like do the thing, get a rental unit, right, and rent it out. Mm-hmm. But almost anything I do in software is probably going to have outsized returns over real estate. And so I never did that. But all right, I'm excited to hear your ideas.
I need to be channeling more Jordan Gall. I have the article pulled up here, and we'll link it in the show notes, which means I'm going to send it to you, and then you're going to link it in the show. How great is that? The numbers are, he wrote 5 blog posts that he didn't even write himself. He hired audience ops to write those blog posts by Cast Jam. What, Brian Castle?
Brian Castle.
Has that company?
Yep.
Yeah. This is such an insular group. I love it. It's a very small world. So he spent $4,000 in Facebook ads, and then turned that into an additional $348,000 in ARR, which he then goes on to calculate it's
times
worth
5
millions of dollars. Yeah. Increase the value of CartHook by somewhere between $1 and $2 million. So he turned $4,000 into $2 million. Like, yes, that's what I want to do. Can I do that multiple times? Can I do that every day? That would be great. Okay, so here are, with that framing, these are the things that immediately popped into my mind of like, here are some projects that I think may increase the valuation of FileInbox. Thing number 1. I'm already feeling like this is not a place to put effort, but it may make sense in this framing of like that I could I could justify outsourcing it. I really want to transition to serverless, like entirely. I want to ditch Rails. I want to rewrite the parts of the app that I need to get this entirely onto Firebase. Firebase scales infinitely if I can just take that infrastructure and move it over. So like this I think is where I have felt the most limited in this business, because there's always this little voice in the back of my head when I'm thinking about marketing of like, oh man, if this is successful, that would actually be bad because more people would be using it, and there's some cheating that you've done in architecting this. It's running on 2 VPS servers that get overloaded like once a month, and you get these emails from Honey Badger saying that the servers crashed, but they rebooted because it's this whole thing on Doku, and so it's fine. But like, if this became really successful, this would be a lot more infrastructure stuff and setup that you'd have to do to fix it. And so for that reason, to make it so that like that is never an issue ever again, I want it to be serverless so that it just scales with usage. And that would also open up some new, but that would be a better foundation to be building new features on, because I could do things like increase the file size to something ridiculous. Right now it's a maximum file size of about 2 gigabytes. I could theoretically increase the maximum file size to 2 terabytes. And that's not something that like would be impossible to do in the current infrastructure, but architecting it with that in mind and architecting it with the 6 years of experience I've had running this business in mind, I could make something much cleaner that I felt much better about pushing forward development, and it would feel much better. And like that has felt like the last time I was talking about File Inbox, this is the project I was talking about. And it feels like I have to justify it because from a business perspective, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. It seems like you have a thing that's working that people are already using, like just do that and deal with scaling problems as they happen. Scaling problems are going to happen no matter what. And it feels limiting. It feels like, I don't know. I'm struggling with this point. What's your hot take?
Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm feeling with Meeting Place 2. There's some things on the back end, plus it's in Bootstrap, and I want it in Tailwind. It does not make sense from a business perspective at all. You and I are both blowing out of proportion how much this actually impacts the rest of like the future of the business. However, we do not have teams that we can rely on to push us forward even when things don't make sense. And so I can see it both it's hampering both of us. Like it's stopping us from moving ahead in the business so from that perspective, it is exactly the thing that we should do first. It does not make sense. It will not make revenue go up. You're probably overblowing the problems with it. However, you will not be able to proceed unless you do it. Same thing with my backend things. Therefore, it should be the first thing that you do. Yeah, definitely. I'm giving you permission to ignore all business reason and just do it.
Cool. Thank you, boss. That's magnanimous of you. I think that's what I needed to hear. Okay, cool. Yes. Yeah, good. Yeah, I'll just do it. I'll stop fretting about it, and I'll just do it, and it's fine. I think something else that I get caught up on is like trying to design the ideal framework. I think I get caught up in this idea of like, oh, if I just spent another month chewing on this, I could come up with even better ideas for how to architect this, and it'd be even better. But like, no, I shouldn't even be doing this at all. But it does make sense to do it because it's a thing that's bothering me, and for the way that I want to run this business, it makes sense to invest at this layer. And it's not going to be perfect, and it's never going to be perfect. But like, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that would be done by just doing it and being done and going to the next thing. Yeah. There's so many things I've learned about software development since I made this code base. Some of this code is like 7 years old. And I look back at code that I wrote last week thinking like, what idiot wrote this? What was he thinking? This doesn't make any sense. You can do it so much easier. You can do this 100 lines in 2 lines, and it's better and handles more use cases. So like, the term code rot, I think, is useful here, of just like, it's old and I don't like it and I'm going to redo it, and I'm going to think the same thing about the code that I'm going to write in another year, and that's fine. That's just how it is. And I'm just going to go forward.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Whatever you write now to replace it, know that in a year you're going to look back and hate that too.
Yeah.
But you will have gotten over the hump and have a year worth of improvement. Where the other choice is you do nothing and then do nothing for a year,
Yep.
and you still have the same problem. So
Yes.
yeah, redo it.
Let's do it. Let's move forward. Cool. Okay, thing number 2. This is actually an idea that I got from Jordan Gall in the last conversation I had with him, which is that I could make plugins for every site building app. So like I could have the file inbox plugin for WordPress, and I could be on the WordPress store, and it could just be a really simple WordPress written in PHP that's like it effectively just like slots in my plugin with the line of JavaScript that I need and stuff, and I could do that on Shopify, and I could do that on Squarespace, and every website building thing that has a platform, I could have a plugin for that. That's just a one-click install, and now you can drag and drop files. A difficulty that I have in the space is I hate PHP, specifically for WordPress. Like I don't think I want to make that plugin, but I could figure it out. But the bigger problem is that I am not really familiar with what is good on these platforms. Like I have never used them. The one time that I've used WordPress, I hated it, and I was like, I'll just make my own thing. This sucks. And I'm not quite sure how to tackle that. I think this is potentially a really good problem to throw money at. Of like maybe I hire a WordPress plugin developer who has good taste and be like, hey, for step 1 of this job, I would love if you just sketch out what you think this would look like ideally. Like, I don't even know what it looks like to install a WordPress plugin. And so the alternative to that would be, I think I could spend time to just, like, pretend like I'm someone setting up a WordPress site and install some plugins and try to develop some taste of, like, what makes a good plugin or bad plugin. And I'm sure in the process of that, I'll come up with ideas that I can't even see yet of, like, oh, my gosh, WordPress, I don't know, has this concept of forms, and here's a deeper integration I could make where I integrate with a form on WordPress and put files in that. And the same is true of like each one of these platforms. I know nothing about Shopify, and so do I hire someone to help orient me on that in Shopify? Do I do that and then also set up a Shopify store? But the play I think of like just getting file inbox in all of these stores is a way that I could very easily spend something like $5,000 to increase MRR by $1,000, probably for each of those stores. What's your hot take on that?
Yeah, so totally fantastic idea. You should definitely do it. There are a few things. One is like, so Shopify, for example, if you write a Shopify plugin, I think they're pushing really hard and may even make it a requirement now that you have to use Shopify billing also or something like that. Okay. There are things like that probably for every store. And so I would definitely talk to someone who's built plugins for each of those before. One great way to do it would be so Microconf Remote has, I don't know if you're in their Slack, workspace or whatever, but just go on there and say, has anyone done a, WordPress plugin before? I'd love to buy you lunch on Grubhub to talk to you for half an hour, about whatever. So that's probably where I would start. Another one is, the Software Social podcast. Do you listen to that one?
I don't.
Softwaresocial.dev, I think it is. Yeah, softwaresocial.dev. She's building a file uploader on the Heroku store. So,
cool.
Yeah, I would go listen to some of those. She talks about, different problems. That's Colleen. So Colleen Michelle are the two. And
I had a call with her the other day.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So call her again and say, what are all the problems you had with file uploaders in Heroku? Anyway, because Heroku might be a good place for this also, the Heroku store. Yeah. So do that. WordPress is
Colleen and I are targeting different demographics. I think she's going after like the
developers.
Yeah. And I'm more of the front end users. But yeah, we talked all about that in like the back end. And,
right,
yeah.
Cool.
Okay, cool. I didn't even think about asking her like how to get on the Heroku store. Yeah. Okay. I'll ask her about that.
And
what a small world.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I think WordPress would be fantastic too. I think WordPress would be a home run for sure.
Yeah.
But you probably need someone who knows how to build a good WordPress plugin to do it right. You probably don't need that much PHP because I think yours is going to be a lot of front end work calling your servers, right? And probably a little PHP to like install it as a plugin. I don't know anything about WordPress, but
yeah. I think the surface level implementation that I could do on each of these stores is just like the plugin inserts a line of JavaScript
Right.
and the little HTML tag that tells me what the page is.
Yeah.
And that would be trivially easy. But then there's some things on Heroku, like you can buy the product through Heroku. I don't fully understand how that works.
Yeah.
And then it's like the one click and they already have your billing.
Yeah.
But that'd be slick.
But yeah, I would pick one of those stores and get it in one.
Okay.
And then go from there.
Neat. Okay, I like that. I'm going to pick one and get it in one, and I think I'll do a combination. I'll do like a call with an expert to orient myself of just to get the lay of the land, which I've sort of already did this with Jordan Gall, because he has his he's big on Shopify. His card hook was built like as a Shopify plugin.
Yeah, but I think he moved off. I mean, he didn't move off of Shopify. He got out of their store, right? Because they required him to do billing through Shopify. Like his company's big enough now that he didn't want to deal with that. So, which I think a lot of people were kind of upset about when Shopify required that.
Interesting. Okay, well, I mean, I'm small and agile, and I think I'll look at that integration and.
Yeah,
I like it's a pro and a con. It's a con of like it's more work, and it's a pro because there's a bigger moat now. And if I'm on the inside of the moat, great for me.
Right. True.
It's even better. Okay. I could see this being a place where I get stuck of just like decision paralysis of trying to pick one. So I think I'm just going to pick one.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to do any of these. I think definitely some are going to be better than others, and I think the only way for me to learn which are better than others is just to do them. So. For this next week, I'm gonna try my best to get something on Shopify. Great. I've decided arbitrarily. We're just gonna go for it. We're gonna try to do it. And next week I might say, wow, that billing thing is a pain. I'm not gonna do that. Cool. Okay. Next thing for the hot take. I've noticed in a lot of the calls that I have with some of my better customers on File Inbox, they ask me about integrations with OneDrive and SharePoint. Right now I do Dropbox and Google Drive. This is a technical thing in the category of like it would be made much easier after I transition to serverless, because like a big part of the infrastructure is going to change, and I'll have better models for being able to make integrations easier. And I've known that I need to do that for years, that like that's a place where I could be making more money. By spending the equivalent of $5,000. And I think what might make sense here is like once I've rebuilt the app to be serverless, I might just have like a protocol of for each additional integration, here's the protocol that it needs to follow. It needs to be a serverless function that can run in JavaScript on the Google Cloud Function serverless architecture. And you're going to receive a job, and the JSON for the job is going to look like this, and here's how you access the file stream. And then I don't care about the implementation details, but just like get the file moved over and then report back to me its status, and the status needs to be one of these 4 states, and here's how you report back the status. And if I could get to that point, this is something I'd love to throw money at instead of time. Like I would love to actually get to the point where I'm spending $5,000 of money instead of $5,000 of time to be doing features like this, because then I could like hire a developer and say, okay, here's the protocol. I certainly could figure out the OneDrive or SharePoint APIs, and I am not going to. Instead, here is some money and a very detailed product spec, and like, I don't know, maybe I even write the test cases for it. Or maybe I say like, this is you're writing the test cases, but like they need to look like this. Here are the states that you need to check. And that would then open up the bandwidth of like, okay, if I've set up that foundation, now maybe I spend $15,000. That number sounds so high. Oh my gosh. But like now I integrate with everything. And now every cloud thing, $15,000 doesn't sound like a lot though in the context of investing. Like if I'm talking about, $50,000 for a down payment of a house, okay, it's entirely, this is a mental game of just like, yep. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, good. So I establish the baseline. I say like, this is what a plugin needs to look like. And then I hire developers to make each individual integration. And I just systematize like an integration needs to have a button to be able to link your account, and it needs to support those states, and that feels like a manageable thing. And then, so higher level from a business perspective, I think this is a worthwhile place to go because Dropbox and Google Drive are more consumer-ish cloud storages. I don't think there's any individuals using SharePoint, and I think if I do this exact same service integrated with SharePoint, I'm going to get a lot more and a lot better customers. What's your hot take?
Yeah, so I think it's also a good idea. If you try to do all three of these at once, I think you're going to drop the ball somewhere. So what I would focus on is the first two for now. So transitioning to serverless and Shopify integration. And then once you have your serverless stuff done and you feel better about it, especially because as soon as you switch to SharePoint, you're probably getting bigger files and more of them. People are going to be transferring around business kind of files, which can be big. But I agree that it probably means more enterprise kind of clients, which can pay you more and last longer and stuff like that. I think it's a great direction to go, but I would do the first two first because I think you could do Shopify and the serverless stuff in parallel probably, whereas SharePoint feels like once you have the serverless stuff done, then you can figure out how to do the SharePoint stuff better. That's my guess.
Yep. Cool. That makes sense. Okay. I think what I've come to, I have 5 more things that I could talk about, and I don't think I need to. I think the answer is going to be very similar. Of like, I know what to do next. I just need to do it. I just need to do it. That's fine. Good. And then I can move forward on the plugin at the same time that I'm doing serverless, because I don't think that part of it is going to change. Like, I'm just embedding a JavaScript.
Yeah, the JavaScript's going to be the same, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm looking at all these other features are going to be easier once it's serverless, and also the views are rewritten in React. Okay. And then I stole your idea for the TweetDeck notification. I could do that for ShareFile. I will do that right after this podcast. Okay. So here's what I'm doing for next week.
All right.
I can't transition to serverless because that's not a thing that is defined. I'm going to have I'm not going to change the backend this week. Like, it's still going to be running on Rails. But I would like to send you a file inbox URL. So it's going to be like fileinbox.com/cjenko. And from your perspective, it's going to look the same as it does right now. You drag and drop the file in, and it says the file is uploaded. And on the back end, that's going to be running through the Firebase serverless architecture. Is that a doable thing? That's a doable thing.
I think so, because you did half of that before. I seem to remember.
I did. I just need to put the two pieces together. Yeah, of course. And that's what I'm going to do for next week. So that's that first point. And then for the Shopify plugin, I don't know. I'm going to... I don't know how to push that forward. What's like a chunkable piece of work?
If I were to be making a Shopify plugin, I would have sign up for Shopify and get make a dummy plugin that shows Hello World, right? Make a Hello World kind of dummy plugin, show up on your own Shopify store. That's what I would do. And my guess is follow some tutorial, which will make you do that.
Cool. So next week I will have a dummy Shopify plugin that says Hello World. Great. And that'll involve like setting up a Shopify. Yeah, I'm just going to go through a tutorial. And then my third thing is I'm going to set up a TweetDeck notification for ShareFile. And if I think of any other things like that. And I'm just going to set it up. Not going to reply to anything. I don't think I'm even going to set up the redirect because I find myself going to TweetDeck about as much as I do Twitter. Well, that's not true. No, I'll also set up the redirect. But I also want to go to Twitter. I'm just going to set up the notification. That's all I'm going to do. And cool. All right, great. I think you said that we have a listener hot take. Do you want to do that?
Well, I did, but we're already past an hour. So
we are.
I had the idea that we could put it out there. So yes, a listener wrote in with a hot take that they wanted us to cover. So if you are listening and you want us to hot take your business idea, then why don't you contact one of us, and we will do some listener hot takes next week. How does that sound?
Perfect. That sounds great. Why my camera's freaking out?
The camera is freaking out.
My camera is ready for this episode to be over. All right, cool. That's all I have for this week.
That's all I have to.
Then I will see you next time. Goodbye.
Right, bye.